By most accounts, the police crackdown on the Occupy Oakland encampment on October 25th was severe. Tear gas, flashbang grenades, and beanbags were fired at protesters. And some protesters exhibited bruising from what they claimed were rubber bullets fired by police when they attempted to reclaim their encampment. In the most serious injury of an Occupy protester so far, Scott Thomas Olson, a 24-year-old Iraq veteran, had his skull fractured when he was struck by a tear gas canister during the Tuesday night events. The injury left Olson in critical condition. Reading about these events in the nation's capital, though, you got a different impression. The Washington Post, which has experience in minimizing the Wall Street protests, ran a short AP dispatch about events in Oakland under the headline, "Protesters Wearing Out Their Welcome Nationwide." And the photo the Post chose to run with the AP story? A police officer bending over to pet a cat, with a caption explaining that the animal had been left behind by protesters evicted from the city park.
Washington Post columnist Richard Cohen decided to pay a visit to Liberty Plaza for a first-hand view of the festival of anti-Semitism at Occupy Wall Street. He found none, and he declared that fact on October 24th, writing, quote, "I circled the place, encountering nothing and no one to suggest bigotry. Not a sign, not a book, and not even the guy who some weeks ago held up a placard with the instruction to Google the phrase, 'Zionists control Wall Street,' close quote." Cohen says right-wing attempts to smear the Occupy movement for anti-Semitism are reprehensible. But it turns out that's just a setup to his smearing them with a bunch of other stuff. Like slogans, he says, quote, "suggest a tired socialism that is as repugnant to me as the felonious capitalism that produced the mortgage bubble and the impoverishment of millions of Americans," close quote. Cohen calls Occupy Wall Street, quote, "a tourist attraction with the usual vendors, the usual zoftish young women doing the usual arrhythmic dance, somehow missing the beat of many drums," close quote. It's a media event that has captured the flea thoughts of many Americans, and it's, quote, "above all, a conspiracy to have left-leaning writers make jackasses of themselves by imparting grave and grand meaning to what is little more than a vast sleepover," close quote. Finally, for good measure, Cohen tosses in the idea that the right-wing smears of the Occupy movement are themselves the fault of the left, because such smears originate in the, quote, "devious tactics of the old left adopted by the new right," close quote. And that's no accident because the, quote, "practitioners are the descendants of lefties," close quote. So, anti-Semitic? No. Clueless, repugnant, silly, chubby, something about fleas and themselves to blame for being called anti-Semitic? Yes.